Welcome back to Bible and Blues, and we are on to Acts 21. I am in a Victorian Christmas, and that is the world I'm in right now, which is a cool little world. It's actually pretty good size. It makes it a little jittery when you're going through it if you don't have enough computing power. But for today, I think we're going to be just fine. But without further ado, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The algorithm really loves it when you do that. Just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and just ring that little bell that says get notified when I throw something out there, because I try to get something out every single day. The only time I didn't was during a power outage. That was tough, and boy, the algorithm punished me on that. I'm still having to climb out of that hole, let me tell you. But that's okay. You know what? We're going to continue on because why would we worry too much about that? Those are just numbers, and all I need is one person. If one person says, hey, this guy's got something going on and I like what he's saying and I'm going to check out this Jesus thing, then you know what? Hallelujah. That's everything that needs to happen. That is without a doubt. Or even if just one person sits there and says, you know what, I'm going to check out this whole Bible thing. I read the Bible when I was a kid. I'm sitting there adjusting my camera. I read the Bible when I was a kid, and I want to look at it closer. You know what? Again, that's a great thing to have happen. So we're just going to keep going no matter what. Whether it's two people, no people, doesn't matter. So moving along here, Acts 21. After we had torn ourselves away from them, we put out to sea and sailed straight to Kos. The next day, when we went to Rhodes, and from there Patara, we found a ship crossing over to Phoenicia and went on board and set sail. After sighting Cyprus and passing to the south of it, we sailed on to Syria. We landed at Tyre, where our ship was to unload its cargo. It's a lot of detail. We sought out the disciples there and stayed with them for 7 days. Through the Spirit, they urged Paul not to go on to Jerusalem. When it was time to leave, we left and continued on our way. All of them, including wives and children, accompanied us out of the city, and there on the beach we knelt to pray. After saying goodbye to each other, we went aboard the ship, and they returned home. So, just kind of a note here, and they sought out the disciples there, and they stayed there for 7 days. And the Spirit, through the Spirit, they urged Paul not to go on to Jerusalem. Which is kind of interesting. They were, encouraging him to not go. The Spirit was giving information saying, don't go. And yet he was saying, you know what, I'm going to go. It's like, you're just as stubborn as the rest of us, aren't you? He knew, because remember, he did that farewell speech in Acts 20 at Ephesus, and so he knows bad things are going to happen when he gets there. He knows things are going to happen. This isn't even in doubt. We continued our voyage from Tyre and landed at Ptolemais, where we greeted the brothers and sisters and stayed with them for a day. Leaving the next day, we reached Caesarea and stayed at the house of Philip the evangelist, one of the 7. He had 4 unmarried daughters who prophesied. That's actually quite the honor to have 4 daughters unmarried, but they were who had the gift of prophecy. That's pretty crazy. After we'd been there a number of days, a prophet named Agabus came down from Judea. Coming over to us, he took Paul's belt, tied his own hands and feet with it, and said, the Holy Spirit says, in this way the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem will bind the owner of this belt and hand him over to the Gentiles. Even more warnings of what's happening. When we heard this, we and the people there pleaded with Paul not to go up to Jerusalem. Then Paul answered, why are you weeping and breaking my heart? I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die in Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus. When he would not be dissuaded, we gave up and said, the Lord's will be done. So they tried to talk him out of it. And he was like, hey, this is what it is. If this happens, this is what's going to happen. After this, we started on our way to Jerusalem. Some of the disciples from Caesarea accompanied us and brought us to the home of Nason, where we were to stay. He was a man from Cyprus and one of the early disciples. When we arrived at Jerusalem, the brothers and sisters received us warmly. The next day, Paul and the rest of us went to see James, and all the elders were present. Paul greeted them and reported in detail what God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. When they heard this, they praised God. Then they said to Paul, "You see, brother, how many thousands of Jews we have believed, and all of them are zealous for the law. That they have been informed that you teach all the Jews who live among the Gentiles." Wow, check this out. They have been informed that you teach all the Jews who live among the Gentiles to turn away from Moses, telling them not to circumcise their children or to live according to our customs. What shall we do? They will certainly hear that you have come. So do what we tell you. Okay, so here's what's happening. Lies have been told about what he's preaching and what he's telling people to do. He's been telling them one thing, and the people, remember, he had people everywhere he went who were against him, and they've been spreading lies about him. And some of these lies are saying, if you're, to not circumcise your children, and to do this and to do that, and just not live according to our customs. He never said don't live according to your customs. Your customs are your customs. Do what do what feels good for you, kind of concept. There are 4 men with us who have made a vow. Take these men, join in their purification rites, and pay their expenses so that they can have their heads shaved. Then everyone will know there is no truth through these reports about you, but that you yourself are living in obedience to the law. Remember, he was a Jew. He was actually a Pharisee, and previously as Saul, he was a Pharisee. So this is something he has. He knew what to do, and they're saying, "Hey, do these things so that everybody knows you're still following, the law, the Judaic law." As for the Gentile believers, we have written to them our decision that they should abstain from food sacrificed to idols, from blood, from the meat of strangled animals, and from sexual immorality. The next day, Paul took the men and purified himself along with them. Then he went to the temple to give notice of the date when the days of the purification would end, and the offering would be made for each of them. So he had to put a cash outlay too, for this as well. When the 7 days were nearly over, some Jews from the province of Asia saw Paul at the temple. They stirred up the whole crowd and seized him, shouting, "Fellow Israelites, help us! This is the man who teaches everyone everywhere against our people and our law and this place. And besides, he has brought Greeks into the temple and defiled this holy place." They had previously seen Trophimus, the Ephesian, in the city with Paul, and assumed that Paul had brought him into the temple. They just made assumptions. Yeah, I saw you with a Greek, and you must have brought him into the temple. Again, I mean, they just saw it as it's like they didn't even see the Greek in the temple. They just said, "Okay, we're going." This is it just really, really bad. I mean, they're really against him. The whole city was aroused, and the people came running from all directions. Seizing Paul, they dragged him from the temple, and immediately the gates were shut. While they were trying to kill him, news reached the commander of the Roman troops that the whole city of Jerusalem was in an uproar. He at once took some officers and soldiers and ran down to the crowd. When the rioters saw the commander and his soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. You can imagine, really? Come on. It's like, oh no, the commander's here. We have to stop trying to kill this guy. The commander came up and arrested him and ordered him to be bound with 2 chains. Then he asked who he was and what he had done. Some in the crowd shouted one thing and some another, and since the commander could not get at the truth because of the uproar, he ordered that Paul be taken into the barracks. When Paul reached the steps, the violence of the mob was so great, he had to be carried by the soldiers. The crowd that followed kept shouting, "Get rid of him!" As the soldiers were about to take Paul into the barracks, he asked the commander, "May I say something to you?" "Do you speak Greek?" he replied. "Aren't you the Egyptian who started a revolt and led 4,000 terrorists out into the wilderness some time ago?" Egyptian? Listen to this stuff. Do you speak Greek? "Aren't you the Egyptian?" He's not an Egyptian. "Who started a revolt?" He didn't start a revolt. "And led 4,000 terrorists?" No, he didn't do that. "Into the wilderness some time ago?" No, he didn't. This looks like American politics. Paul answered, "I am a Jew, from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no ordinary city. Please let me speak to the people." After receiving the commander's permission, Paul stood up on the steps and motioned to the crowd. When they were all silent, he said to them in Aramaic, "And here is the reading of the Lord. Thanks be to God." You want to hear what he said? Tune in tomorrow. So, I mean, all these lies that they were saying about it was it did sound like, I mean, did we just not go through a nasty, election for president? I mean, how bad was that? And a lot of it is still going on too. And I see the same things happening that happened then. So to say this is a symptom of American politics, here's an example that it isn't. I mean, this is actually normal when people are against one another. So, thanks be to God. So grateful to have read this. If you want to hear what he said, be sure to tune in tomorrow. Like, share, and subscribe, because I put out something every single day that I can, except when my power goes out. Can't help that, can you? So we're in a Victorian Christmas. It's a little Christmas village. Actually, right here you see a big screen where you can enter something like, YouTube video or something like that. But directly in front of us is what looks like it could be a factory. We are in, it's just a village. It's just a Victorian village. You see this nice Christmas tree right here. Back up as far as we can. And, then right there is a church. The moon is out. It's beautiful. It's snowing. Snow is falling. A couple of ladies standing here talking at the foot of the steps. It's the foot of the church, the steps of the church. I can't talk. It's okay. And then it's actually kind of funny. We come over here, and we have a young lady that looks like she has been making a bit too much merry. And then we have an elderly gentleman right here. Looks like he's been making a bit too much merry. And neat thing about the horses in the horse-drawn carriage, they're wearing saddles. Every single one of them has a saddle on. I think that's actually pretty funny. It's like, okay, you couldn't find an asset without that. Okay, such as it is. Couple of people sitting on this bench, having a conversation, chit-chatting away. But it is a beautiful city. It looks like and I think it's great. The snow is falling, big snowflakes, wreaths on the street lights. It'd be kind of fun to see some holly or something on the buildings, but they did a pretty good job, I think. Some alleyways right here, and there's a couple of constables. A couple of policemen out here keeping the peace. We have a nice big building right here. I'm not going to, it's really well done, I think. And it's a good place to kind of hang out with your friends maybe and chit chat and talk and, have some fun. So like I said, here's a police officer looking around, making sure everybody's happy and doing the right thing. There's another one over here. There's a few portals right here. I haven't checked them out at all yet, but however, they are there. Here's another Bobby, another constable. There's a mirror right there, so you can check yourself out. But it's a nice place. I think it's. I don't know if I'll put it on one of my favorites, but definitely like it. It's a little choppy for me because of the size of it. We're going to be checking into maybe upgrading my computer this weekend or so, some point in time. But until then, it's okay. We can still get a lot going on. But, had fun. And turn this thing around. There we go. But, hey, thanks for coming. Really appreciate you coming out and spending time with me. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. When I had my power outage, I wasn't able to post. And the algorithm, which was just starting to pay a little bit of attention to what we're doing here, it just tanked it. And so we're going to have to climb back out of that. That's just is what it is. But you know what? The whole concept of if one single solitary person watches this and plants a seed that they're going to see they're going to check things out more, and maybe they'll come to the Lord. That is worth all of it. So no big deal to me. We're going to keep going on because the harvest is great and the workers are few. We are the workers, people. So please join me in this. Comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you this world is pretty cool actually. I was kind of on a road here, and you can see behind me kind of the scope and size of this particular world is actually really big, and that's one of the reasons why it gets so stuttery on me, because that's a lot. We call that really heavy. So anyway, but thank you very much for coming, and be sure to find out what Paul said to the people of Jerusalem in Aramaic tomorrow. God bless. Bye-bye.